communication. And it's about improving your communication with improv. And improv is not really the comedy stuff, but it has a lot of, we're going to do some exercises and games that are fun, but that also expect that I can call on any of you just to start speaking on, just like that, all of a sudden. And that would be fun. I mean, we're going to be more of a fun session than really a lecture. That's why I have a workbook for you, and as you see, the workbook is a little bit thick, because I meant to put everything in there, so in case we don't go through every single detail, because we only have an hour and a half, at least you will get, you can go home or go to your office or whatever with the information that you need to properly communicate. Are we ready? Okay, we're going to start with an icebreaker. And the icebreaker will be, I'm going to tell you names of people, famous people that you all know, and you need to tell me one word. What comes to your mind when I say the name? So I'm going to go in a random way, okay, and just point at whoever to talk, all right? So let's start. Bill Gates. Rich. Bill Clinton. Who? Bill Clinton.
Intelligent.
Intelligent. Madonna.
Rich.
Oprah.
Inspirational.
Inspirational. Dr. Phil.
Texas.
Practical.
Practical. Martha Stewart.
Black, no.
Well, this is going to be how the whole workshop is going to be.
My text message.
Exactly. You're a toastmaster.
I know.
Table topics?
Martha Stewart, housewife.
Housewife. Bart Simpson. Bart Simpson. Cartoon. Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen. Crazy.
Angelina Jolie.
Driven.
Lindsay Lohan.
Oh, drug addict.
Sean Connery.
James Bond.
Very good. Okay, this was just like a quick exercise just to warm us up so we can start the workshop. And this is more or less how it's going to be. So I'm going to just point at you to just answer a question or say your thoughts or just to start a speech on the spur of the moment. Okay? Okay, let's go. What is communicating effectively? And by the way, communication is different than effective communication. Communication, everybody communicates. But are they effective? Yes or no? It depends. But effective communication meaning that if I'm the sender, I'm talking to you, the message that I'm sending to you, I need to make sure that you receive it the proper way that I intended it for you to receive. A clear, concise message, where there is no disconnect in the middle, where the two ends understand each other 100% without any perceptions or without any miscommunication or without any mistakes in the message that we're trying to convey. Okay? And through the workshop, we are going to go through how to do that. Why do we care about communication? Any ideas? Because we do it every day.
Helps us get what we want.
Exactly.
Eye to eye contact is very important.
I'm sorry?
Eye to eye contact.
Eye contact is very important in conversation.
Without the communication, you can't get your idea across.
Absolutely. Because communication is not only exchange of words, but it's also exchange of ideas, of concepts, of information. And why do we care? Because the demographics of the country we live in are changing. We are so diverse. I mean, look at the room and see how diverse we are. And we're still all women. But we are different races, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different ages, and each category of that is a different diversity. And that's why all communications are totally different. Why also we care? Because imagine if there is a miscommunication in an operating room during a surgery. What happens? A disaster. We just heard like a couple of months ago where someone in USC went into surgery and they gave them the wrong kidney. In Miami a few years ago, I think his name is William Byrd, but don't quote me for that. And he went into a surgery Z. I mean, they confuse between the J and the Z. So they told him to go on the runway Z, and in airline you use Z, Zulu for Z. But because they say the Z as G, the pilot thought they were saying Juliet, which is for J. And then a disaster almost happened. So communication is very important. As we could see, it could put lives in jeopardy if we don't communicate properly. You have a paper, each one of you had a paper on their chair. Can you please take it? This is about perceptions, because perceptions is very important in communication. I could be saying something, but you would perceive it differently from what I want to say. So if you perceive it differently from what I'm going to say, that means that there is a misconnection, that there is a disconnect, where the message is not going to be transmitted properly. That means that I did not achieve effective communication. And just to get our head around it, this exercise, for instance, it will tell you that, by the way, there are no right or wrong answers. All the answers are right. So the first one says, my neighbor just bought an expensive car. How much did it cost? Please put a number next to it. Several people were in line for the movie. How many people were waiting in line? The ballot measure was approved overwhelmingly. What percentage of votes did the measure receive? We just went into voting like a month ago, right? My boss is an older man. How old is he? I recently saw an article in the paper. How long ago did I see it? Okay. What did you answer with the expensive car?
80,000.
80,000.
75. 47.
48. 48.
75.
75.
250,000.
250,000. Expensive.
60.
60.
60.
60. See how each one of us, we are all right, because this is what we perceive as being an expensive car. All the answers are right. So if I say, for instance, I want an expensive car, I might be meaning a Ferrari, like we said this morning, or a Lamborghini.
But could it also be, it says my neighbor, it depends who your neighbor is.
Could be how you perceive your neighbor, what he can afford or what they can't afford. Exactly. It's all about perception. Let's take another one. My boss is an older man. How old is he?
100.
He's just an older man. There's no age, there's no way to say.
Okay, this is how you perceive it.
Older man.
Okay,
60.
60.
65.
Let's ask the expert here. Okay,
70s, late 70s.
70,
75.
75. Again, all the answers are correct. It's just the way we perceive it.
Depends on
It depends on it. And if we can understand that, we will understand that the communication can disconnect. If I'm saying, for me, like when I was in my 20s, an older person would be in 40 years old. When I was in my 30s, an older person would be 50. When I'm in my 40s, it will be in their 60s, and so on. So depending on the person you're talking to and what is their perception of an age or of a number. So this is something that we need to put in mind as well. Okay? And this is for you to keep just to have an idea. I'm just going to move on because I know that diversity. Why do we care about diversity in communication? Like we said before, look at us in the room. We are all diverse. And they used to think that diversity is only black and white. But it's way beyond that. We have an acronym that we use in diversity. It's called REGARDS. And REGARDS represents the race, ethnicity, gender, age, religion, disabilities, sexual orientations, and many more characteristics like what? Like social economic, like education, like geography, where do you come from? Like your title, what do you do as a job? Even our diversity of thoughts is considered part of diversity. Each diversity has its own culture. Age, gender, ethnicity, no matter what it is, it has its own culture. And each culture has its own way of communication. And that's where the challenge comes in. And we are going to go through the barriers of all the communications and how we can solve them. First of all, in order to understand the problem, in order to find a solution, we need to understand the problem and the process, what it goes through. So this is the communication process. The communication process, and it's in your books, by the way. It's on page 5. Thank you. It's a source, which is the sender. They send a message, then they encode it. And encode it meaning they try to transmit it in a certain way. And when we transmit a message, it's affected by our past experiences, by how we grew up, and by our culture. And we encode the message to pass it through a channel and to the receiver. And the receiver, when they get it, they go and decode it. And when they decode it, again, they decode it according to their personal experiences, their culture, what they are used to. So we can see already how many disconnects can happen and how we can manage each single item of them to avoid these mistakes. The typical communication types that we have are downward communication. It's like a boss to the employees. And it happens, or a parent to the kids, or a grandparent to the grandkids. And it goes basically, they explain to them what is expected from them, what are the guidelines that they should follow. This is the communication, it's a one-way communication. Upward communication, either from our kids to us, or from employees to their managers. Horizontal communication is this. It's like when you communicate with your brother, your sister, or an employee at the same level as you are. Intra-communication is when you communicate with yourself. Sometimes we talk to ourselves, correct? I do. I don't hear voices, so don't worry. but it's like a kind of, when we talk to ourselves, and it's like that little voice inside of us that tells us, maybe we should do this, or maybe we shouldn't do that. The intercommunication, it happens like in conferences or in meetings, where one person is in front of a lot of people and they start communicating. Mass communication is like when you do a PR campaign, or when you go advertising. External communication is if a company or an organization, like, how did you know about this conference? It was a mass communication that went to you and told you about the conference. They communicated the message that there is a conference coming up. If I'm going too fast, let me know. The phone exercise, this is a fun one. What we're going to do, again, is about how we can misrepresent or mishear what is said. What we're going to do, I'm going to start here, I'm going to tell her something in her ear. And she has to go and the message we have to pass from one person to the other, you say it only once in the other person's ear, as clear as you can. So you will know what I'm going to tell you, and at the end, the last person, we're going to ask her, what did she get? And we're going to see the difference. All right?
I'm sorry.
it can happen. I mean, I have been through this exercise so many times, and when we start, it's something totally different from what we get. And that can tell you that if you are trying to send a message to someone, if it goes through so many people, you have to make sure that the message is transmitted properly. If not, it's going to get disconnected, and there will be no effective communication.
So where did it break down?
Never
It
mind.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter where it broke down. What matters is that it did break down. So we need to make sure that from me to Cassie, for example, I make sure that I did my role in putting the message the right way. Then Cassie has to make sure that she understood it from me the right way. It's two ways. It's like a tennis game. And it's not about who's going to win. No, a tennis game meaning like, you know, back and forth, without the ball falling. That's basically what effective communication is. Okay? No?
No, we used to play this game.
Okay. Actually, this is a game that I used to play even when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
You know, and we used to play that game a lot.
But it went so well up to here. And then,
You know what? It's okay. It happens everywhere. I mean, anywhere I was in classes that were smaller than that or bigger than that, and there is always somewhere where it gets disconnected. You know, because it goes fast and it goes from one to one. You know, and there are rules that you can't repeat the message twice. So people pick up whatever they can pick up. You know, so barriers to communication. In order for us to find a remedy, we need to know what the problem is. Correct? So if we know the barriers to communication, we can know what are the problems. The first one is physical. And physical meaning it's a physical barrier. Either a wall, or you're sitting in a cubicle, or there is actually in another building, or there is something between both of you, or you are in a room that either the temperature is high or low. So that's a physical impairment where you can't really think right. I personally, if I'm cold, I can't think. My movements are not even coordinated when I'm cold. If someone has a radio or is listening to music, or if there is a constant phone ringing, that's very disturbing. I can't concentrate on that either. So that's a physical barrier. A perceptual barrier. We just did the little exercise of the car and of the age. It's about the perceptions of the people. If we don't have the same perceptions, there will be a disconnect in communication. Psychological. If someone comes to you talking to you about something and you're not in your regular mood, you are upset or angry or you don't like that person, are you going to accept properly the message they're giving you? No. Exactly. There is an emotional barrier there. There is a psychological barrier between you and the person giving you the message. Language. We need to remember that there are a lot of people around us where English is not their first language. They use different words, so if we use slang or jargon, they will not get it. Like, throw me under the bus, or kick the bucket, or, for instance, I always tell this story. When the first time I ever came to the States, many moons ago, I was on a TWA flight, and I said thank you to the air hostess, and her answer was, "You bet." I felt very insulted. I did. Because for me, I never knew that I bet is like, you're welcome. For me, betting is like gambling, and I'm like, I'm not playing here, I just told her thank you. It's like, how rude, you know? So it was a way, because I did not, though I spoke very well English, but I still did not know that you bet was a welcome. Imagine if you go to a medical office and the doctor starts telling you your BP is high, you're systolic and diastolic, you have hypokalemia. Would you understand a word of that? Unless you have a medical background, you will not. Same as an IT person, if they come to you and they start telling you about the motherboard and the CPU and all that, I won't understand what they're saying.
But they always talk to you like that anyway.
Exactly. And they're still speaking to you in English. You know, even language, English language between the UK, British people and the American people is different. Like, for instance, to table an issue, what does it mean in the States?
Put it off.
In the United States, in England, mean let's take it up. It's exactly the opposite. like flat. Flat in England means an apartment. A lift means an elevator. So even they're speaking English, but if someone doesn't know or does not perceive that they have a different way of talking or different terminology for the same words, guess what? We will not understand them. And there will not be effective communication. The gender. This is the good one. Do we agree that there is a difference between men and women talking? Remember, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, correct? Why is it different? Why men and women are different?
You have 4 weeks, I mean, really.
Do you have 4 weeks?
One is emotional and one is logical. One reason.
Exactly.
They approach everything from a different point of reference.
Exactly.
One thinks from their waist down and the other thinks from their waist up.
I love this one. I love this one. Actually, women think differently. They decide differently. And they talk differently. Like you said, men go for the facts. It's like, don't waste my time. Just give me facts. Just give me numbers. Give me the bottom line. I don't have time. But we women, we like to nurture. We like to build relationship.
I do have women like that, though.
There are, yes. There are, and by the way, remember,
There are men that are like women.
exactly. You know, remember, whatever examples we can give are general example. They are not particular because there is diversity in every single diversity. Meaning in every single culture or gender or age or whatever, there's still going to be differences. So we are talking just about the general idea or concept about it, but there are absolutely the women and men that are on the other side. Yes, please.
I think with gender also perception comes into play because men and women perceive things differently. I mean, you take an experience, a life experience, and a man's going to take it differently than a woman.
Exactly. And you know what? Men have a way to put things in compartments. Like this is work, this is family, this is kids, these are my friends, this is sports. Women, we kind of, it's a big word. It's everything is nice. Yeah. You know, everything is here, so let's bring everybody together. Let's nurture everybody together.
Well, women do multitask better.
Multitask better,
They do
yeah.
multitask better than men.
Exactly. I mean, how many times women have asked their husbands or their boyfriends or their significant other when they're coming home to pick something to bring home? And how many forgot? Why? Because you called them at work. They were not concentrating on whatever you were saying.
Or they just didn't want to. I do that all the time. That's because I'm
You know, so women, we hint. We hint. We're not direct. Let's face it, we're not direct. We hint. Not all of us. We hint. Meaning, like, if I want to go somewhere, you know, I'm going to laugh now. If I want to go somewhere and I tell my husband, oh, did you see those commercials about Jamaica? Aren't they wonderful? Yeah, and he's like, yeah, okay, you know? Yeah, but see, these beaches look like awesome. The water is so clear. You know, and it's like for him, it's like in his mind, it's like, can I watch my program now? You know, and for me, I'm just like, I'm hinting that I want to go to Jamaica. But for men, they are direct. Tell them, I want to go to Jamaica. Don't hint around it. So that, the way we communicate is different. So if we want to communicate with the other gender, either at work or at home, we need to put that in our mind. We are not wrong, we are not right. They're not wrong, they're not right. We need always to remember that. That there is no right or wrong. It's just a way of accommodating and changing our way of communicating to be able to communicate effectively. And that, believe it or not, and I'm guilty, I don't have the best communication ways, you know, but believe it or not, it's a working process. You know, my husband is here and he's laughing, so. It's a working process, you know what I mean, that we go through, no matter how long you have been with your significant other. You know, it takes time, you know, for you to accommodate, to communicate properly. Okay. Generationals. We know that either at home or at work, there are 4 generations generations more or less together. They are the older generation, the grandparents, the parents that are the baby boomers, then there is Generation X and Generation Y. Generation Y being the youngest. Those are the people, if they are your kids or you work with them, these are the people that if you want to reach them, you text them.
Yes.
You don't leave a voicemail because they won't hear. They won't hear. They don't have the time for that. They grew up with social media. They grew up with Facebook. And they invented now new words like I'll Facebook you, meaning I'll find you on Facebook. Or I'll tweet you later. I'll catch you on Twitter. So even the terminology of the words that we use kind of change with the generation. And we need to realize that. Like, for instance, the older generation was direct, respected authority, everything was done properly. Baby boomers were workaholics. So, but they prefer meetings face-to-face, and they don't challenge authority. Generation X is more or less the people that where the rules are a little bit flexible, and if they can replace a face-to-face meeting with a phone conference, they will do it.
Or an email.
Generation Y is now where, like, you know what, let's just do it. They believe in autonomy, and let's just go on and do it. We have an expert in a gerontologist here, so we need to, in order for us to understand how each generation communicates, if we kind of put our head around the conditions they grew up in. Like, for instance, the conservatives grew around the depression time, so it basically kind of hammered the way they communicate or they live. Baby boomers were workaholics, you know, and that's why the divorce rate at that era was high. And so the Generation X grew up seeing that their parents spent all their time at work, and they had no time for the family, so they became like kind of, they want work and life balance. And they became what is called the helicopter parents, where they took their kids everywhere, they made sure that they took them everywhere. So if we know that, if we know where they came from, we can somehow understand the way to communicate with them more or less.
What ages are you thinking the baby boomers are?
From 45,
It's a pretty broad range.
48 to 50,
47
47
to 64.
to 64. Racial, cultural styles of communication. We know that we are the products of our environments. Every single culture is the lens through which we see the world. And that's why each one of us will have a different way of communication. Each one of us will have a personal prejudice or a personal bias, no matter how open-minded we are. There will always be something that we have against whatever it is, something or someone or a particular way of doing things or a particular race or whatever it is, we will have some kind of prejudice. And in order for us to communicate better, we need to know what are these forms of prejudice that we have. The symbols, expressions, and signs are, there are symbols that mean different things to different people. And we need to realize that even colors mean different things to different people. Like, for instance, in the Asian culture, the white color is associated more or less with death. And it's the same like number 4. Number 4 means death in Japanese. So if you give a gift to a Japanese person, do not give them anything that is 4. That like is like whatever it is, like 4 golf balls or whatever, yeah. You know, and different, like, people like number 7, but the Chinese prefer number 8. So it's a different perception of numbers as well. So we need to put that in consideration. There are also the body language symbols and signs that we're going to go through right now that are different from one person to the other. These are funny examples of miscommunication, okay? This one is cool. And these are real examples, real life examples, by the way. This mayor of Preston said English is our language, no exception learning. Look how he wrote exceptions. This is a pure translation, okay? start a story. So they will say a word, and the person next to them needs to complete a word on that word till at the end we have a coherent story. You cannot drop the ball.
I got in my car this morning and my motor wouldn't turn on.
Not just one word, I mean the whole thing.
Oh, one word?
One word.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were doing
So I thought
table
AAA.
Okay. So
And remember what you said, you know?
Is
What?
I
And two, three.
The story needs to be coherent.
What was the first?
Can we restart again? I mean, whenever you continue on a story, you are communicating a story at the end. So whatever you are adding needs to have a meaning to the word before you.
And talk loud, because I didn't hear the first couple of
Okay,
words.
we're gonna call
I'll
it.
start
Okay,
like one first, like up front, and then do like a snake.
okay, fine. Yeah, Kathy.
Today was
Alcohol.
Okay.
wait,
Alcohol.
days.
I said days.
There's D-A-Z-E, right? Okay. Because
Oh, today was alcohol days, because I
okay. Right? Okay.
martinis.
and a
Mojito.
with olives and
Mint.
Berserk.
Okay. So now the story is today was alcoholic days because I drank 2 martinis and a mojito
I forgot what I said.
with olives and mint.
Oh, I thought you said
And
wet.
Berserk.
Oh, sorry.
And went
Perception.
Hearing. So this is communicating and adding on each other properly.
I think everyone wants a drink after.
Actually, there is a funnier one coming up that is a little bit harder, but see what I mean? It's just like how we, and all of us, what did we do? We focused on whatever the person right before us said, so we can continue a coherent story. Part of effective communication. God knows, again, I'm guilty sometimes of not listening properly to whatever is said in front of me. So, you know, so this is part of us focusing, you're happy, I know. This part of focusing on what the other person, and we're going to go through active listening and learning what does it mean, okay? Now the exercise that we're going to do, like we did before, is about the following. Is about, it's a story, but you can, the answer that you give has to be a question. So for example, if you say,
What the product method, kind of?
yeah, it's like, you know what kind of puppies do you have? Which type do you like? Are they German Shepherd? Are they, and you go on and on asking, the response is always a question. And we need, it doesn't have to be like a full story, but at least your answer needs to be a response to the other question. And you cannot give an affirmative answer, it has to be a question. Okay, so this time we'll start from the back of the room.
How do you feel?
A question.
Oh, is that something specific?
No. Any question that comes to your mind.
How do you feel?
What options do I have? Good. What do you think?
What do you think, what do you mean, what do I think?
Okay.
Well, where are you going with that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Has anyone ever had a Siamese cat?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. That's our brain fart. What's with this brain fart? Did you hear what she said?
Okay. Marlene?
What's today?
Did she say fart?
She put you in the best spot. Why these not okay?
What was that?
Are we talking about today?
What
Okay.
are my choices?
What are our choices? Okay.
We gotta be kidding.
You gotta be good.
Do you guys know where the restrooms are?
What did you say? Do you need one? See, that was also listening and focusing on whatever the other person said in the beginning. And somehow, yes, it was not all related, but somehow the conversation went smoothly and made sense. Why? Because we listened effectively to each other. And we tried to concentrate to come up with a response that matched the message. Regardless who said it. We focused more on the message than on the person. And that's why we got yes, we had a little bit of fun, but it was also, it made a complete story at the end. Okay? Types of communication. What are the types of communication that we know, or the most common? The verbal, that are transmitted by voice or message. The written, which anything that is written, or the non-verbal. And the non-verbal is basically that anything that is not transmitted by voice or it's not written. Meaning that it could be a body language or whatever that you have to interpret. That is left up to your perception, and that's when it becomes challenging. Because each one, we have our own different body language, and sometimes what we say verbally can be totally different from whatever our body language is doing. I could be saying, yeah, I'm all aboard. I am. What does that mean? I'm not ready. I'm closing myself up. You know, I'm not really open to whatever you're telling me. Or you are talking to me and I'm looking downward. But we're going to talk about the eye contact in a little bit. And that's a break between body language and actually the verbal message. And we're going to go through that in details. The verbal communication can be one way, two ways, collaborative. One way, when, like for instance, you call someone and you leave a phone message. A two-way would be when you face-to-face or you call someone on the phone. So it's a two-way communication. Collaborative, when you have a meeting and there are like here, this is a collaborative communication because we are so many here trying to communicate together. And all that is in your workbook, by the way. Just like, you will have it in details in the workbook. I'm just going a little bit faster because of the time. The written can be memos, proposals, emails. I mean, who doesn't have an email these days, right? Training manuals, operating. It can be one person sending a message to a lot of people by email, for example. And it's one too many, and it's usually when you use the written method of communication, it's because you want to convey facts. If you want to convey feelings, you do it face-to-face or verbal. And that's the difference between the two mediums, the two channels. So even when we choose the channel of communication to another person, we need to be aware, what are we intending to convey? Is it personal feelings? It will be verbal. If it's just fact, it will be written. Business email do and don'ts. How many of you got this not funny emails and everybody just reply to all? Either at work or your friends. Don't do that. I mean, if you don't like it, just delete it. If you want to send it to someone else, don't reply all just to say nice or great. It creates basically inbox for nothing. Don't send emails that are all capital letters. Do we know why? Shouting. When you send something all in capital letters, meaning that you're either angry or you're shouting at the person you're sending the email to. If at work you receive an email by mistake, please let the person know, because it could be a very urgent message that they need to transmit. At least let them know that you received it in error. Make sure that you have a proper subject line. If you need to request something, make it on top of the email so people don't have to look into like 3-4 pages to know exactly what you want. Always say thank you at the end or sincerely. Don't hit send till you spell check. Spell check and then do it yourself, because sometimes if you want to send cost effective COST, if it's written COAST, the spell check will not find it.
Right.
Because COAST is a proper word and the spell check will not find it. So we need to like spell check with our eyes as well, plus whatever we have on the computer. If you don't want anybody to really, if you don't want someone to know something that you wrote, don't write it in an email. Because once it's sent, you can't take it back. So if you don't want everybody to know it or to see it, don't write it. Because it's become also, especially at work, sometimes it could be held against you. So make sure that whatever you write, it's okay for you for everybody to see it. And again, don't put everything that you feel is confidential if you are copying everybody else. Make sure it goes only to the right person.
Sahar,
Yeah.
what about texting and Blackberries and doing email on the run? A lot of people send me one-liners that sometimes they make sense, lots of typos. I don't always understand the message. That seems like it's getting worse.
It is.
It is.
It is.
There's also autocorrect on phones, which if people don't check it, is a huge problem.
Yeah. And
In
you
my
know,
experience.
exactly. And you know what?
Could you say that again? I didn't hear.
People have autocorrect on their phones.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I always check it because I'm a Smitty for that stuff, but people, it's autocorrect. Like, the other day I wrote UK, and it came out Knish, which is totally not what I wanted to say, but it just changes the word for you based on the keystrokes.
Especially if you're fast, like if I send a message on my BlackBerry, also I get the auto spell or whatever.
Right.
So I have to be more careful actually than if it wasn't.
You do.
You know, and it's just like sometimes it's correct, especially if you are like trying to send something on a keyboard that big and on a screen that big. You know, you don't always see what is that. Especially, and remember the younger generation, they use abbreviations. They're going to like see you later would be letter C, letter U, L, number 8R. That would be see you later. You know, so it took me a while to realize I had to keep reading it a few times to understand what it meant.
There's a whole new book.
A whole new terminology, exactly. It's like BRB, be right back. Yeah.
You know what I'm guilty of in business, is just telling people, I don't do that. I mean, I'll do short text. I will not text someone. I will not do a whole business thing texting. I just
Guess you're not working
I
with
would.
anyone under 3.
You know,
I don't have any
you
clients
know,
under 30 to do that. I mean, all of
Yeah,
my
I just want to,
communication.
I say, you know, it's like meet me at 8, fine, or whatever, but it's always, I say, I only text short and sweet. Just tell me what you want, when to meet you, what time. I won't tell a story texting. It's just too much.
I don't
When,
Sorry.
when I went to school, they put on one of the pages, you know, to wise you are, to wise you be. To as you are, to wise for me.
Very good. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, I mean, to keep it short and sweet, it's nice, but then some people nowadays take it to the other extreme where everything's shorthand, like SMH, or, you know, BRB is one of them, but,
OMG.
or BRT.
Yeah. OMG is like, oh my god.
Yeah, LOL,
LOL.
LMFAO.
Yeah.
I mean, you got like, what's BRT? BRT is B right there, and then SMH is shaking my head.
This is new one. Well, the LOL and the NMAFAO or whatever, they were during the AOL, if you remember the AOL before, it started when the internet started in the late 90s, beginning
Whenever
of
we start
2000.
chatting,
Yes.
like online, you know, if you're laughing at something, it's no longer ha 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 ha,
Yeah.
it's LOL.
It's the instant messages like the Yahoo message, you know, SMS and all that. But it's just changing more and more these days, which is, like, sometimes I don't understand what the message was.
Yeah.
It's miscommunication.
My mom will write out abbreviations that nobody would know the answers to. Like, last time it was JIFT something.
TGIF? Well, this is an older version of Thank God It's Friday.
Turn out being just landed in Florida, I'll call you soon. All the first letters of the entire I can't translate.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, now I'm gonna date myself, because I have twin daughters that are 21 years old, but I think that they miss something, because I see them talking to their friends, they're going like this, and they're
Yeah.
talking, and they're going like this, I'm looking, they're gonna miss something when they really get into the business world, they're gonna start texting and not paying attention, and
Actually, they don't, believe it or not, most of them don't. Because they grew up with that.
I guess.
They grew up with, and when you are at work and you have different generations, this is something that you would start needing to pay attention for. That's why we always say when you have different generations, you need to have mentoring and reverse mentoring. So all the 4 generations can work together better because, believe it or not, again, it's diversity. Whenever you have diverse people, the better production you have, the better results you have, the more innovation you have, the more solutions you have. So you need to think about it this way. It's just their generation.
I was gonna say, to be fair, I work with, most of the people I work with, especially the ad agencies, are between the ages of 22 and 28. And I just think it's kind of a workplace culture, like level of professionalism. If I have a meeting with them and it's a dinner, I might say, I'm parking, or where are you? But none of my business communication regarding any kind of like buying, I mean, any of it.
You're not going to send your client,
First via
see
text
you
message,
later.
it's all via email, phone, or in person. And, you know, I don't think that just because someone may text when they drive, even though we don't want them to, or may spend most of their night at home, I mean, God knows I know some teenagers who, I mean, they might as well have like a little hat with a phone in front of them.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that, you know, during the day or at their workplace that they're not engaged with what they're doing. I mean, just to be fair to
It's
younger
true.
people. And you know, also,
Remember-
I'm in my early 30s, and I didn't even have internet until I was in high school, but I work in media, and so I have, 2 Twitter accounts, and I have 4 email accounts, and I have, a phone, and I can reach all of them, and all my calendars on my phone, but that doesn't mean that I'm not, like, I didn't really grow up with it. I became a culture to it, do you know what I'm saying? But I just think that, if we can like mediate those standards in the workplace, that it's not as much of a problem as people think.
Well, that's why it's
Yeah.
mentoring and reverse mentoring. And remember what we said earlier, we all have our prejudice and bias against certain things. So this could be one of them. Like the younger people will say about doing, oh, they're not tech savvy, they don't know how to use computers, they don't know how to use their smartphones. Why do you have them if you don't know how to use them? And the older people are just like, you don't know what you're doing, you're just doing this, you don't have any ethics or whatever. And that comes, that's the conversation that we have, but we need to go beyond that to have proper communication.
But I think it makes people more, kind of responsible for the things that they're saying if they do have to put it down on paper. Because I've actually worked in places before where situations will come up and they'll go, via this email 2 weeks ago, you actually knew what was going on in this project, so you can't say you don't know. I think it's actually made people more important.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, your 21-year-old twins. Now, like, I see the generation where, like, I mean, I'm kind of like you, like, although I'm not in my 30s yet, I didn't get internet till I was like,
I'm kidding.
I had the internet in high school, like later in high school. But I find that, like, my younger cousins and just the younger generation, like even 10 years younger, they've grown up with it since they were like 5.
My sister knew how to use PowerPoint in high school. She's 4 years younger than I. I didn't learn how to use it until like 5 years.
I have
Yeah.
nephews that are like 9 years old that can do a full presentation with like word arts and colors and that I didn't learn to know till I was like in my 30s.
You were required to take a class on it in middle school. Yeah. Keep going.
My granddaughter's
Oh,
9
yeah.
years old, and they have like computer classes. She has computers, they go in, they work on the computers. I took her to the Apple store, she knew everything. Oh, this was this is that. I said,
It's amazing how
That's
they can multitask.
Right.
Yeah, it's a supplement.
I will
It takes
say,
a while for
some
us to
things
understand.
Amazing.
I'm just starting out in my career, and I think the issue with like my generation, or even younger, is that too many people get working on Facebook, it's not like that's the issue when you're not short text or anything, but it's like
policies of
I just think a lot of the ADD and lack of focus in, you know, even my age group or people younger or whatever is because there's just so much coming at you all the time. That,
Again, that's
it's just distracted, it's just, you know, you're like a movie or whatever, driven to distraction.
And that's what makes us think better when we communicate, that we need to understand that there could be all these barriers that we need to overcome so we can communicate properly. Now we go to the nonverbal communication, and it has appearance, body language, silence, time, and space. Silence. In certain cultures, silence is part of the culture. Like some of the Asian cultures, when they don't speak that well, like for instance, there is a proverb, Japanese proverb that says, he who speaks a lot does not have knowledge, and who has knowledge does not speak much. You know, so they have this silence that they when they talk, they pause, because they reflect on what you're saying. So it's acceptable in their culture, you know, to be silent. In certain cultures, like here in the United States, or even like in some Middle Eastern cultures, where if you become silent, it becomes uncomfortable. Like for instance, in Egypt, if we become silent, we keep repeating the same things again. So how are you, and how are the kids, how are the family, you know, because it's uncomfortable to be silent. That means that there is something not right if you are silent. So we need to put that in consideration when we communicate with people. It's acceptable to certain people, and certain people is not. The time reference. There are cultures like the United States culture that is what we call a monochronic, meaning time is money. Let's do it, let's get to business. Time, you know, you go on meetings on time, you have appointments, you're not late, you know, you have something, well, I told you I have only till this time, and then you move on. You know, this is monochronic. You take one task at a time. The polychronic, which is like the Middle East or the Hispanic cultures, where time is a little bit flexible. It's elastic, where people care more about building relationships than just doing business. So if we are dealing with people from other cultures, we need to put that in consideration, so we don't lose that communication, because for them, communication will be, for the polychronic, where the time is elastic, communication will be about building relationships, not about let's just go business, get out, and that's it, and that's achieve the goal. The space. We know that here in the United States, our personal space is very important, and it's at least an arm length around us.
For some people.
For some people,
But
but there are cultures, like for instance the Middle Eastern culture, where they can be right here, and that's not being rude for them.
She's Turkish.
You know? Yeah, exactly, you know? And you see it in business meetings sometimes, like an American person and a Middle Eastern person right here, and they keep approaching, and that person goes like this. They keep approaching, and the person goes like this, because they have nothing except the wall. So we need to put that in consideration. They don't need to be rude, but this is the culture they're in. I mean, unless they are Americanized or whatever, or someone had explained to them that this is not really comfortable for people like here from the United States, they put that in consideration.
In terms of nonverbal communication, there has been a lot of instances in which you're not really aware of what you're saying with your...
Actually, we are going to that right now.
That's right.
No, but I understand. And please keep that thought up, so if we don't cover it, come back with it later. A body language could be anything we do. Like, for instance, the Indians, they have a head movement that goes like this.
Yeah.
And this means yes, means no, means hello, means maybe. Like this, from side to side. So you have to actually ask, you know, because sometimes I would assume if someone does that they mean no. Okay? The Turkish people, when they say no, they go like us, like this, but they also go like this. So sometimes you can take it like, in Egypt you can say that this, like yes. So depending on the body language, you have to know really what that person means. Or at least ask them if you have to, especially at work. Like for instance, this, what does it mean?
Okay.
So are you here?
Here. Thank you. Here it means okay. In Brazil, it's an insult. In Russia, it's zero. In Japan, it means money. In places like Egypt, if you go like this, that's a threatening sign, meaning I'll show you what I'm going to do. This is only this, like you were talking about body language. This is just this. This.
Devil.
Rock on.
Yeah.
Texas.
What's this?
Yeah.
Longhorns.
No, say this is I love you in sign language. And also, it can mean, I mean, this in Italian means like I put a curse on you.
Thank you.
So we know exactly that just hand signs can mean a lot. You know, eye contact. If we have eye contact with someone, when I talk to you, I need to look at you straight in the eyes, correct? If not, you're not going to trust me, or you're going to think that I'm hiding something. But there are cultures like the Asian cultures, or the Middle Eastern culture also is very straight. You have to look to them into the eyes. For instance, the British people, you look at them in the eyes, but you don't just keep like focusing like that because they consider that rude. But you establish that eye contact, and then you look around somehow. But here in the United States, you need to keep the eye contact all the time. In certain cultures, again, like the Asian, they are a humble culture. So out of respect, especially for elders or for people on a higher managerial position, they do not look at them in the eye. And this can be miscommunicated as not being assertive or not being respectful or not knowing what they're doing, which is totally wrong. They could be the best candidates for employees for that position, but it's just their culture that for the eye contact that is different. We have here, I have some emotions here for body language, okay? So I'm going to pass them around, and I want whoever gets it, comes in here and without talking, act what the feeling is. And we need to realize what is it. Okay? We're going to translate the body language of whatever it is. Any volunteers?